you could check, I mean, right down to his shameful withdrawal of his statement about Palestinian suffering. I'm afraid I wish things had moved on. And every few years I think, oh, good, the debate is really moving on. Oslo, I wrongly thought that. Summer of 2000, I thought that. Jimmy Carter being a bestseller, I thought that. And then my hopes are inevitably dashed because you have the entire top leadership of the Democratic Party announcing that Jimmy Carter does not speak for the Democrats, despite his rather anodyne proposals. I wish I could reassure you, but I'm afraid that we're still stuck in this same rut. And I just want to make one very quick point that I'm sorry to have offended David's nationalist sentiments here by belittling Britain's status in the world, but the fact that the British government on this issue absolutely and subserviently toes the line of the American government on the question of Israel-Palestine in every respect. Yes, it does.
Of course it doesn't.
Including the absolutely lobbying for the disgusting, absolutely disgusting embargo on the Palestinian.
You have not been following events here.
Okay, let him reply to that.
Andrew, you have been away too long. One of the things that the government has most assiduously pushed, to the irritation of quite senior figures in the administration, was the absolute necessity of the United States renewing its role to attempt to try and get some kind of solution in the Middle East, to the cost of the Prime Minister's own reputation significantly. And you write this off. You see, it's not nonsense. And if you thought that was the case, would you ascribe this somehow or other to the magic Israel lobby in Britain? Would you?
Well, I think Tony Blair is very conscious. Well, I think he's more conscious of the Americans.
It's Lord Levy, isn't it?
That's why I was concentrating on the United States.
It's Lord Levy and his money. Come on, say it.
The Israel lobby in the United States that dictates American policy, as you know.
In Britain.
And to which Tony Blair is the obedient poodle, as you know. So it really doesn't matter what the debate is here, because Tony Blair is going to do what he's told.
All right, we're going to take a question from the gentleman in the fourth row there.
I have a question for Dr. Aaronovitch. I mean, you mentioned that...
You dignified me, I'm no doctor.
Excuse me, I was being polite. So, you mentioned...
In that case, may I say thank you, Professor?
Thank you very much. You mentioned that one of the strongest aspects of the Israeli lobby, and the reason why it's so strong, is that Israel is a democracy. My question to you is that Hamas was democratically elected, and although it does not have the means or the financial support to create such a strong government as that of the Israelis, why has it not been accepted by the United States? And isn't that a sign that the United States, the Israeli lobby, has stifled, in fact, the acceptance of this democratically elected state?
It's a very good question, but note what you've left out. You've left out that it was also rejected by the European Union. Now, even Andrew has not until now, if he wants to, now suggested that the EU is also in the pocket of the Americans, in which case your line of demonology works like this. The Americans are in the pocket of the Israel lobby. Britain is in the pocket of the Americans. The EU is somehow, despite Iraq, in the pocket of the Americans as well. Therefore, ergo, the West is in the pocket of the Israel lobby. It's all science in 11. There's no, of course. And anybody who believes that the question of the right of return of Palestinians is not a complicated question must indeed answer that the answer to everything is that the Israel lobby is behind everything.
So that's you haven't answered his question.
No, I went off on a peroration of my own because I got cross.
Okay.
You haven't.
I'll answer. No, can we just ask David to answer?
You haven't really answered my question.
No, to be absolutely honest, and I've forgotten your question.
Can I answer it?
Well, I asked you, and I don't know if you've had difficulty answering the question or understanding it, but my question to you is that why hasn't the United States accepted Hamas as a...
good. No, it is a good question, and it's not just the United States. Why has
I don't want
to
know about Europe. I want to know about the United States.
I want to talk about Europe. I want to answer
you have
in my own way.
Question.
Maybe there are dangers in my answer in my own way, but I'm still going to do it.
You will come back to the bit that he has mentioned.
Yeah, why has the EU and America not recognised the Hamas government? It's not recognised the Hamas government because Hamas refuses the right to recognise the right of Israel to exist, and also has not rejected terrorism. That's the formal reason. Now, I personally believe that was an error. I can see why the error was made, and there are very good reasons in Europe in particular. There are very particular sensitivities about toleration of terror and so on. I think it was a strategic error. The strategic error permitted people to say exactly the thing that you're saying, you're inconsistent and so on. So I think it was an error, but I think it was an error that was made in good and not in bad faith.
May I quickly address that? Let's agree everything Mr. Aaronovitch just said is true, for argument's sake. There's an elementary principle of international law. It's called reciprocity. If you apply law to one side, it's called hypocrisy. If you apply it to both sides, then it's called a moral statement. So let's look at this. He says Hamas is not recognized by the EU and the United States because Hamas won't recognize Israel. Now, the logical question is, can you name a single Israeli government official, political party, which has ever recognized a Palestinian state within its internationally legal borders? Namely,